a tight-knit community at the very end of Scotland. Welcome to Jan de Groot. Jan de Groot lies at the northeastern tip of Scotland, in the historic county of Caithness, a land that boasts Viking roots and sublime scenery. But it's most often linked with far-off Land's End in Cornwall, forming one end of the most iconic journey in Britain. Almost every day, from one end or the other, an intrepid walker or cyclist sets off on the ultimate challenge to raise money for their chosen charity. But what lies at the northern end of this famous journey? And where does the really strange name come from? Jan de Groot was a 15th century Dutchman, a long way from home, but a very canny entrepreneur. He operated a passenger ferry across to Orkney, charging 2 pennies, which he called a groat. This was a thriving business, but it caused his 7 descendants to quarrel fiercely amongst themselves. So much so that Jan built a house with 8 sides so that each one of them could have a different entrance. This octagonal form was mirrored in the historic Jan de Groot's Hotel. He was buried here at the 17th century Duncansby Church, and his name lives on in the corrupted Jan de Groot's. Duncansby Head is the most northeasterly point of the British mainland. The lighthouse here was constructed and designed by David Stevenson in 1924 to guard over the treacherous waters of the Pentland Firth. The view from here is absolutely unparalleled. Down the coast to Jan de Groot's, across to the deserted island of Stroma, and then across to the Orkney Isles, the mountainous Isle of Hoy, South Ronaldsay, and then to the lighthouse that sits on the perilous Pentland Skerries. Around the corner from the lighthouse, looking like a scene from Game of Thrones, you'll find the absolutely awesome Duncansby Stacks. You know, there are still some lazy guidebooks that say that compared to Land's End, Jan de Groot is disappointing. Well, don't believe a word of it. Make sure to give yourself a day, or even better, a whole week, to explore this remarkable corner of Scotland. The driving force behind Jan de Groot is the local Community Development Trust. I went to the famous Seaview Hotel to speak to Andrew and Walter Mowat and find out more. The first time I came to Jan de Groot many years ago, there weren't many visitor facilities, but things in recent years seem to have changed radically.
Yeah, the Development Trust has done quite a lot here in Jan de Groot the last few years. We have implemented lots of changes to the public realm area, and to do that with the money that was raised from the Development Fund, which is the parking donations people are paying when they come to stay at Jan de Groot now. That money all goes into a pot, and then at the end of the year we have a list of projects to do, and all that money gets spent on projects in Jan de Groot to improve the area for everyone, whether it be locals or visitors. So over the last couple of years we've been able to We've got a new path that goes along the front towards Duncansby Head and the Groaty Beach. It's now walkable, whereas in fact it's wheelchair accessible now, whereas before it was only able, you were virtually not able to cross it.
Our idea is it'll be called the Jan de Groot's Promenade, which will go Jan de Groot's Promenade East and Jan de Groot's Promenade West, which will take you one to the mill and one to the cliffs that we have up at the top.
We have another trust that owns the mill now, and we are going to be changing it into a visitor attraction and community centre or community space for people to use for things. That development is probably going to be somewhere in the region of about £2.5 million. From a couple of years ago until the next 3 years, we're probably looking at roughly about a £4 to £5 million investment in total between public and private investment till Jan de Groot itself, which is really, really good for the area. Even the new brewery, people can go and walk and have a pint when they come back now. So it's not only good for the tourists, it's good for the locals as well. And that's really what we were aiming to do, was to have it so that it was good for everyone. It was to include everyone, no matter where they came from.
Yeah, and then there's actually a distillery coming as well.
Yeah, and then you can have a dram. And then you can come, and there's eating places as well, which you can come and have some food. And there's plenty of accommodation here in Jan de Groot's. Probably, I don't know how many beds there are here in the area, but there probably is somewhere in the region of about 200.
A bit more than that.
But probably more than 200 beds.
Yeah, we run a book festival. We've been running it now for, 3 years. It's been growing and growing each year.
We also have a harbour day here at Jan de Groot's, when we get the visits from the Long Hope lifeboat, the Week lifeboat and the Thursday lifeboat, where we have a pipe band, a local pipe band, and we have a vintage, the Caithness and Sutherland Vintage Car Rally have meet out in the park just next to the Seaview Hotel. We have had this last number of years the May Highland Games, which often is frequented by Prince Charles. We have a local football team here, which often are involved in what's called the Highland Amateur Cup, and that's a day out for locals and for the visiting team.
If you need a really strong coffee before you set off on the journey, then I know just the place.
Hi, I'm Teresa Wymer and I run this place Stacks of Duncansby with my daughter Becky. We've been at this since 2016 when it used to be an old derelict pottery. We kind of built it from nothing with bits and bobs, and now it's all a bit crazy. Post-COVID it's coming up to time for a change, so we're going to be turning it into a Deli bakery coffee house instead.
And you have a real commitment to local suppliers, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many people around here doing great stuff. Eggs and everything. Fruit, veg, the lot. There's lots of home delivery boxes, that kind of thing on the go. Coffee, everything. All our drinks, our booze, our beer, the teas. Coffee is roasted in Ballater. We make everything in-house here, down to the pesto, hummus. Everything's made in-house.
And away from the tourists, this is a thriving community, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There's no nightclubs, but that's not what we want. Nature does that for us. We've got views that are never the same. Every 5 minutes they change. Weather that's never the same. Wildlife that just flops past your front door. Out in the sea there. Even the shipping. The Pentland Firth is so narrow that all the shipping comes in really close. Aurora. People spend a fortune going to Norway, and you really don't need to.
Come to Jan de Groot, see the Northern Lights.
Yeah, it doesn't switch on at a set time, which is an often question. It's not guaranteed, but that makes it more special, really.
So when somebody has just arrived, having completed the end-to-end challenge from Land's End, what is it that they most crave?
Weirdly understated, just, I want a cup of tea.
Walter, tell me about the origin of the first and last shop.
Well, the first and last, it originated through my brother Bill, who as a young lad, as a lot of other young children or young lads around the area, used to make some money for themselves. So they would collect groaty buckies from the Shell Beach along towards Duncansby Head, and they would make them into jewellery, into necklaces and brooches and earrings, etc. And they used to sell them out of wee boxes, like after shortbread or biscuits. So this particular year, my brother and his cousin decided to take some old tea boxes and turn them upside down. They put a white sheet on top, and the products they put on top of these boxes, and basically started a shop. So as a progression from that, he moved up to an area of where they had recently realigned the pier, and there was a lot of rubble in that particular area. So he established this what he called the stall there, and then after a few years he put a shelter over the top of it, so that he didn't have to take everything away each time and store it every night. So he developed made a building which you opened up the flap and you took the bottom part away, and you had a ready-made shop there, just exactly the same as you saw off the old picture, which was a picture of my older brother. So there was the two older brothers that worked in it. Then my father, he put a boat back into the water, and he wanted someone to help him to go to the sea to the crabs and lobsters. So of course the brother that was next to me, he was designated to go and do that. So therefore I was 9-year-old, and I thought, well, it's time that I was doing something. So I was put down to help to work in the shop from when I was 9-year-old. So then my oldest brother Bill left to be editor of a local newspaper over in Thurso called the Caithness Courier. And from 1967 onwards, I ran the shop even when I was at school. And after I left college, I thought, well, I'd lived away for a wee while and realised that the beauty and the sort of draw of Jan de Groot's was so great that I thought, well, I should be able to make a livelihood here. And I then got in contact with planners and etc. And I got designed the first and last shop, which is of an 8-sided design, still in keeping with Jan de Groot's legend. And at the time, the ferry was developing, so we added on an area that had a wee waiting room. So it was called the first and last at Jan de Groot's, with the ferry waiting room attached. And it basically developed from that. I added on an elongated part about 5 years later, but it's still 8-sided. There's 3 equal 8-sided ends and 2 elongated parts. So the whole building down there now is all of the 8-sided origin, going back to Jan de Groot.
So that's Jan de Groot's. Please leave your comments below and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next journey.